Hello everyone, myself I am Saranya, working as an assistant professor in the Department of AIML in MLR Institute of Technology. Today I am going to discuss about the topic of DES, that is Data Encryption Standard Algorithm, strength of the DES and triple data encryption standard algorithm. So coming to the overview of these slides, what is DES and what is this working process and what is the strength of the DES and what is meant by the triple DES and its working process. So coming to the first slide of the data encryption standard algorithm. So firstly we need to know what is meant by the data encryption standard algorithm. So in this algorithm it is a block cipher and it also contains the 56-bit key length and it has a significant role in data security process. Means we have an length of key length, 56-bit key length, and also in the data security purposes. It is a block cipher and it encrypts and also decrypts in the blocks of size of 64 bits each of the bit size. We need to remember only in the two things in data encryption standard. It is nothing but an 56-bit and 64 bits each of the algorithm. So this means 64 bits of plain text go as the input and it will also get the 64 bits as the ciphertext. So the same algorithm and key is also used for the encryption and decryption purposes. So here our key length is the 56 bits. Key length is also every time the key length should be an 56 bits of the data encryption standard algorithm and block size will be the 64 bits. So 64 bits whatever we have taken in the plain text of input, the same output of the ciphertext we also get the 64 bits only. So the same algorithm will be used for encryption purpose and also the decryption purpose. Means whatever the process we are going for the encryption process, the same algorithm and same bits and same key length will be used for the decryption process also. And the key length will be the 56 bits. So basically we need to know some of the points while we are entering into the data encryption standard algorithm. So the initial key consists of the 64 bits. So every 8th bit of the key is discarded to produce a 56-bit key length. It means, for example, of bit positions 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48, 56 and 64 are to be discarded of the sum of the bit positions. So let us see what happens in the next slide. So it has the bit size of from 1 to 64. Means we are taking every bit of the length of discarding every 8th bit of the original key. Means we will takes the process of the from 1 to 8th positions. Means every 8 process of the bits it will going to discard the 8th bit of the original key. Means for example 1 here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. The 8th bit will be the original key. Then after again 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23. So here what will happens of the 24th of the bit, it is the original key length of the 8th bit. Like that we need to do until the process of the end process. Wherever we are going to start of the end process, we need to take off the from 1 to 64 bits. Means our size is only the 64 bits of the key length. So thus the discarding of every 8th bit of the key produces a 56-bit key length from the original 64-bit key length. Means from the original 64-bit it produces the 56-bit key. Means by using the 8th bit of the key, it will produce as a 56-bit key. Means by using the 64-bit key is the original one. What is the original one here? 64-bit. We got the output of 56 bits. That is the original one and this is the output of the one. So it also based upon the two fundamental attributes of cryptography. One is confusion process and the other one is diffusion process. The confusion is nothing but a substitution process and the diffusion is also nothing but a transposition process. So the DES consists of 16 steps. Means from K12 and so on up to K16. It is nothing but a rounds. The steps is nothing but a K1 to K16 of 16 rounds we need to perform in the data encryption standard algorithm. So it is nothing but each of which is called a round process. So that each round the process will perform the steps of both the confusion and diffusion process. It is nothing but a substitution and transposition techniques. So let us see what happens with the first step. In this first step, we are going to include the plain text of 64-bit. Means we need to initialize a initial permutation of 64-bit plain text. So this initial permutation will be happens on the plain text. Means only we will start the initial permutation of plain text only. First we need to enter with the plain text. Then after, the output will get the ciphertext. Then after we will get the ciphertext process. The initial permutation produces two halves of the permuted block. It is nothing but a left side and right side. We need to know the left side of the plain text and right side of the plain text by including of initial permutation process. Let us see the diagram by explaining the clear. So here now each left process and the right process goes through the 16 round of the encryption process. Means how many there will be a 16 rounds of encryption process. In this 16 rounds of encryption process, we need to take left side and the right side are should be rejoined until we get the final permutation. While we are getting the final permutation, we need to perform from K1 to K16 rounds. Means from the first plain text block to the until 16 rounds we need to complete the both the initial stage and final permutation. Until we need to get the output of the ciphertext, we need to perform 16 rounds. So the result of this process will get used the 64-bit ciphertext. That what we have discussed with the previous slide is nothing but a whatever we got the 64 bits of plain text, we need to get the 64 bits of the ciphertext. So let us see here one example of how DES is going to be worked. So here the 64-bit plain text is there, and from the 64-bit plain text we need to initialize first of initial permutation process. For this initial permutation process, we need to divide with the left side and the right side of the permutation process. After getting this permutation process, we need to give along a secret key here. So without the secret key, we cannot perform the encryption process and decryption process. For every process, there will be a one secret key that is called as a key K. So while doing this key process, we need to perform 16 rounds. Means here there will be a shortcut. We need to perform K1 process. So by getting the K1 process, initial permutation will be occurred and right side of the right plain text. Means K1 process, that is the left side of the plain text process, and next there will be a K2 process of initial permutation and right side of the plain text process. Like that we need to perform until K16th of the permutation process. Means we need to get the initial permutation with the right side of the plain text process until we need to get with the final permutation process. So with this final permutation, we are going to start with an initial permutation. With this initial permutation, we need to get off the 64-bit as the ciphertext of the final permutation process. So by using the final permutation process, we need to take the both initialization permutation and final permutation process. We need to take off this from this diagram and we need to calculate of the every process. So that is the basic of difference between data encryption standard. It is the whole process of the data encryption standard algorithm. So we need to perform from K1 to K16 process by using the initialization of key, and we need to perform the 16 rounds of both plain text, right, left side plain text and right side of the plain text, and we need to present up to K16 process of getting 64-bit as the ciphertext. And now we can see here what is meant by initial permutation. As we have seen here the what is initial permutation. So let us see what is meant by the initial permutation. So it happens only once before the first round of the process. Means we have taken here the only first process of the initialization permutation before of the first process where we are going to start with the 64-bit as a plain text. That what you are saying happens only once and it happens before the only first one round. For example, it can IP places first bit of the original plain text block with the 58 bit of the original plain text and the second bit of the 50th bit of the original plain text block. So it contains what of the output. For example, here we can see of the 58 bit of the original plain text and next it has a 50 of the original plain text block. Like that we need to replace of the one of the IP, means nothing but an initial permutation. We need to shift of the first one and also the second one. Like that we need to replace one by one until we need to get the output. So after this, both the initial permutation is done. We need to permutate. Text block is divided into again 2 half blocks. That what we have discussed in the previous slide. It can be divided into the 2 left one and right one. So it is consist of the 32 bits, each of the 16 rounds. So initial permutation we need to start with the both having left one and right one with around of only 64 bit output of ciphertext, and we need to contain only 16 rounds. We need to calculate only the 16 rounds. We need to get of the output. So here will be the sum of the key transformations, expansion permutation, S box, P box and XOR operation, and we are going to swap. So this is the whole process of the data encryption standard. Like this one by step we need to perform data encryption standard algorithm. Without this formatting one by one, we cannot substitute the data encryption standard algorithm. So first one is the key transformation, next one is expansion permutation, S box algorithm, it is nothing but an substitution box permutation algorithm, and P box, it is nothing but a permutations, XOR, and by using the swap process. By using the XOR operation, we need to do the problematic solve and we need to swap the process. The next topic is strength of the DES. So we have seen in the previous slide of the what is meant by the data encryption standard algorithm. So what is the main purpose of this strength? Means how they are going to perform in the whole of the algorithm, and also what is strength. So it is an symmetric key block cipher algorithm. It is an symmetric key block cipher algorithm. Symmetric key is nothing but using the same key. Asymmetric is nothing but using the different keys. So it is based upon the Fistel network and also uses a 56-bit key to encrypt the data in 64-bit blocks. So we have already known we are using the 64-bit blocks and we are using the 56-bit key to encrypt the data. So they are having some of the points. So about the particular algorithm should be used, and it should be the usage of key size will be the 56-bit. So that is what the strength of the DES. And also there is a possible key of 256 possible keys. So by using this 256 possible keys, a brute force attack on such number of keys is impossible. Means how many times of, so it is nothing but what is meant by brute force attack. So brute force attack is nothing but a number of times the hacker will perform to try to reach the original password. Means he tries until they need to get the original password. But by using the 256 possible keys, the hacker should not get the easy number of the key. It is impossible. So he cannot hack easily. And it means he cannot gain the information, original information. And a machine implementing on DES encryption per microsecond. So it will take an DE encryption process, DES, only the microsecond process of more than 1000 of years to define the cipher. Means by dividing of the cipher, it will take more than 1000 of the years. Means that is the strength of the DES. We are having some of the important points, unimportant points, but we are only the using of, we need to know only 56-bit key and 64-bit blocks. So whatever the algorithm will be used, we need to know 256 possible keys are there. So by using 256 possible keys, there are brute force attacks. Brute force attacks, it should be an impossible one. And also it should be a microseconds. Without the microseconds, it will take some more than 1000 of years to divide the main cipher, means starting of the cipher. And there is no more to key search attack. So it is running through all possible keys. So there is no more to key search attack, means it is also having of attacking but it cannot run easily for all whole of the possible keys. So if the message is only plain text in English, that result pop out simply, means it pop outs simply of the result. So how much of the task will be identify English? It should be automated process. So it should be again automated process. The next, if the text message has been compressed before encryption, then the identification should be a very more complex format. So for example, if the text message has been compressed before encryption, means before encryption, if the text message has been compressed, it should be very more complex. So cryptanalyst and cryptanalysis by exploiting the features of data encryption standard algorithm. So cryptanalyst and cryptanalysis we have discussed with the introduction to the security purposes. There we have discussed what is meant by cryptanalyst and cryptanalysis. Go through that video. So it can be exploring the weakness of 8 substitution tables or S boxes that should be on each iteration. Means it is also one type of the strength of the DES. It is the weakness of 8 substitution tables or any S boxes, means substitution boxes are utilized in the each iteration process. So next one topic is triple DES, means triple data encryption standard algorithm. How many times they are using should be? They are using should be the triple times, means 3 times of the algorithm. So it is an encryption algorithm based on the original data encryption standard algorithm. So the triple DES will be performed based upon the original data encryption standard algorithm only. It should be performed one by one process of the 3 times of the DES. That is meaning the triple DES format. So it is a symmetric key encryption algorithm that uses multiple rounds of the data encryption standard. So to improve the data security. So in the DES also we have seen the same point that will perform the multiple rounds. Multiple rounds is nothing but a 16 rounds. So 16 rounds in the DES we have seen in the previous slide. So to improve main of the data security purposes. So it is a block cipher used to encrypt the data in 64 bit blocks. The same of the DES also we are going to use in the triple DES also 64 bit blocks. So it outperforms the original data encryption standard, means it performs the original DES. So however they are having the less efficient and slower than the AES. In the second video we have discussed with the AES standard algorithm also. If you are having any doubts, go with the previous video. So triple DES is also a less efficient, slower than AES, advanced encrypt standard algorithm, and it is a more slower than triple DES. The next features of the triple DES. So what are the features will be on triple DES? Means how it is going to be number of features or what is going to be performed. So it utilizes a triple layer of the encryption. There are 3 different keys to encrypt the plain text 3 times. So in the DES we have done with the only one time of the plain text, that is left side and the right side. But in triple DES we are going to see with the 3 different keys to encrypt the plain text 3 times. Means one key for the plain text and second key for the plain text and third key for the plain text process. We are using the 3 different keys for the plain text process. So it supports key sizes also, that is 128 bits to the 192 bits. Means it having the particular key sizes which range from 128 bits to 192 bits. And it also involves usage of symmetric key encryption algorithm, which states that the same key should be used for both encryption and decryption process. That is the main concept of symmetric key encryption algorithm. So here also we have seen it is a symmetric key encryption algorithm to improve the data security purposes. Means it should be only using the one single key for both the encryption process and the decryption process. It is a block cipher encryption algorithm that works of the 64 blocks of the plain text. Means at a time they are need to going to perform 64 blocks. And it is used for the legacy systems that requires more secure encryption formats. So how this is going to be performed and how it is going to be work in the triple DES format. First one is encryption process. So by using the encryption process, what will be the following steps? There will be a key generation, initial permutation, and 3 rounds of the encryption process and final permutation process. So key generation, we need to take off the first step of the encryption process of DDES. So we need to use here the key of unique keys should be key derivation algorithm. Means key generation is nothing but we need to use some of the keys of the encryption process, that is the key generation algorithm. How we are going to generate the particular keys in the DDES. The next one is initial permutation. So initial permutation will comes after the step of the key generation process. So it mainly involves the rearrangement of the bits of the plain text according to the predefined permutation table. So initialization permutation table, we have taken the one table of format from 1 to 64 bits. So for this 1 to 64 bits, we need to perform as a permutation, means predefined permutation table by taking the rearrangements of the bits of the plain text. That is the initial permutation. The next, we need to perform the 3 rounds of the encryption format. As we have seen in the previous video is from 128 bits to the 192 bits, 128 bits to the 192 bits, and it is a symmetric key encryption for both using the encryption process and the decryption process. That we have seen here the 3 rounds of the encryption. Means we need to perform 3 rounds of the encryption process. Means first round will be the same for the encryption process, and second round and third round of the original plain text. So it consists of multiple rounds, typically 48 rounds in the total. So in DES we are going to see as only 16 rounds, but here the DDES we are going to get as the 48 rounds, means 16 threes, 48 rounds. Means we need to, how many types? 3 types, means first time, second time and third time. Means we need to perform the 3 times of the 16, that is nothing but a 48 rounds in total. So the plain text is processed 3 times and should be encrypted. Means after getting of the whole process, it will be encrypted. So each time we need to take a different key to create the 3 layers of the encryption. Means for every encryption, we need to use a different key to get the output. So next one is final permutation. So in this final permutation of all the DDES encryption process, the resulting ciphertext block undergoes a final permutation operation. So it is nothing but which is the inverse of the initial permutation process. Initial means whatever we are going to start with the first one, that only initial permutation. So it returns the bits of the ciphertext block to get their original plain text. So see here, the 64-bit plain text have taken. Here also the 64-bit plain text has taken. So what is the main output of this original plain text? We need to get of the 64-bit as the ciphertext. That is the output here. So we need to get output of the 64-bit ciphertext. So here we are doing the DES cipher. After this, doing the DES cipher by using the first round, means taking as a key K1. So it will be converting to the reverse cipher. Means already we have seen here the whatever we are getting undergoes a final permutation, which is the inverse of the initial permutation process. Means we need to take use of different keys to get the 3 layers of encryption process. So after getting of K1, we are going to take here, it will get the DES reverse cipher. Means we need to do the reverse process. For this reverse process, after we getting the output here, so again we need to take as the input of DES reverse cipher. Again we need to get the output of the DES cipher. Means while we are taking this as the input and it is the output, this is the output of again as input, and it will get the output of DES cipher. That is the K2 process. In this K2 process, up to we need to perform as the K48. Means already they have mentioned the 48 rounds. Means 16 3s are 48. We need to perform the 48 rounds. So again DES cipher should be considered again the DES referred cipher. Like that the process will go onto K48 process. So to get the output of the 64-bit ciphertext, means K12, K2, K3, K4, K5 and so on up to K48 rounds. From K1 to K48 rounds, we need to perform the DDES formats. In the DES format, we need to perform only the 16 rounds, because it is only to perform with the same key only the one time process from K1 to K16 process. After that K16 process, we will get the final permutation. At the same level is nothing but a triple DS also. We will perform the initialization permutation and also the final permutation by using the both input and output process. So in today's session, we have discussed with the DES, strength of the DES and triple DES. So in the next session, we will discuss about the substitution techniques and transposition techniques. So thank you.